Namaste. Yesterday there was a question on the 4 8, so I'll take that approach to the integral yoga because there is no one approach to integral yoga. Integral yoga is just like the Sanatan Dharma, very vast, very Catholic, infinite in fact. So different people enter it through different points, like the Ganga. And depending on where you stand by the past evolution, you enter into that tirtha or even midway. And sometimes you don't actually go to a proper ghat and enter. Sometimes the Ganges floods and carries you into her. As I said in my life, it happened like that. Suddenly, out of the blue, Connaught Place, after a good lunch, suddenly taken by the head and taken to Sri Aurobindo through the book. So, there is no one way of doing integral yoga. Any effort to reduce integral yoga to a fixed system of practice, as we have seen in the previous session, is actually doing a disservice. And the mother has cautioned about it. She said, if you try to do it with great clarity that this is the process to do integral yoga, you are actually going far away. That means we are actually moving away from the actual integral yoga. So why is it so? It is so because the divine is bound by nothing. It's a yoga of the divine himself. Has he ever used one process for evolution of dust to man? Did he ever ask the mountains to sit cross-legged and aspire? But the mountains aspire. They are symbol of aspiration towards the light. It is because he is there in the mountains that the mountains aspire. It's because he is there in the river that the river flows to the sea. It is because he is there in the plants that the plants seek the light. It is because he is there in the animals that something in them loves life despite the dangers, despite all the everything that life encounters. And it is because he is there in human heart that we seek for something more than man. So the central point is the divine in this yoga. It is not technique, method, they flow, they will come. Different people, depending on our past background, will enter into this yoga at different points. So important because otherwise, and that's why it's so important not to start, it's bound to happen over a period of time that there will be some people who will claim to be, now that Mother and Sri Aurobindo are not there, so we are the next fellows in the line. Please be careful. I mean, there is nobody other than Sri Aurobindo and the mother. They are still there, and we'll just share about the views about that. Because the moment we do it, each person has walked this path in his own way. If you were to ask me, for example, that how have you undertaken the journey? What is the method you adopted? I would say no method. So people will say still there may be something. So I would say just opening to the grace. Somebody else, he will say every day morning I used to sit for meditation for so many hours and this has helped me. Third person you ask, they will say, well, for me, yoga has been just working day and night for the Mother and Sri Aurobindo. You ask a fourth person, he will say, I am just doing Nam Japa. You ask a fifth person, he will say, for me, Savitri is everything. I have met a person, this person had never come to Pondicherry. And she lived in Brazil, or one of these South American, now I've forgotten the country. And she said she received everything through Savitri, and Savitri itself came to her in a very strange way that she was again going in the market and she saw this book going through a depression and she picked up. And then she started reading and it changed, not only the depression flew away, it changed her life. And when I met her, I was so overjoyed that how could it be? But that is how it is. There are people I know for whom there is nothing else but Savitri. So this yoga, there is no fixed method and fixed technique. So when we have to speak about the yoga, so we have to make some fundamental truths clear. That's how Sri Aurobindo in the very beginning makes clear that this is a sadhana which flows in a free, infinite way, natural way, organic way, just exactly as the divine operates. Let's take another example. So when we go to a doctor, the doctor treats us and we are all right. So we give our credit to the doctor. And the doctor feels very bloated up. not realizing that the medicine he used was somebody else did a research and he used it because of his memory, which was a gift of nature. So if you start tracing back everything, you will realize that it is none else but the divine, who used the doctor, the instrumentation. And of course, if he is a good instrument, wonderful. And if he is not a good instrument, it creates more complications. This is the only thing. So whole creation is an instrument of the divine. And to one who is a seeker, there is a disclosure of the divine in every little act and event. Every little act. That's how the yoga proceeds. So the first thing to remember in this yoga is the ultimate shastra of this yoga is written in the heart of every living creature. Sri Aurobindo says that. And there is a beautiful line in Savitri, one of my favorites, when Satyavan is described. At one place he says, a Veda knower of the unwritten book. What is this unwritten book? Veda is all over in creation. Pick up anything. Veda is what? It is the ultimate knowledge. Pick up a stone and go into its depth, you will discover God. That's how, we have the Puja Vigraha. Pick up an animal. Go into its heart. The most lowliest of creatures, a snake, and you will discover Shiva. Around him he is wrapped. Go further into the heart of Shiva and you will discover the Mahashiva and beyond. Anything in this world carries within it a certain kind of the truth of the divine. And for a seeker, it begins to disclose itself through every experience of life. This is the story of Satyakam and Jabali. See, Sri Aurobindo restored the yoga back to its pristine purity. So unlike now where you have courses on yoga, this many dollars, that many taught a technique, none of those things. Divine doesn't ask a penny. How is he carrying the whole evolution? So we have such beautiful story where Satyakam was given yoga by teaching him to take 100 cows who were lean and thin and come back after they have grown into 400 and they are good, healthy cows. Satyakam goes and when he comes back, he has the Brahmagyana. Because why? Because Satyakam is a seeker. He went to his guru saying, I want to have Brahmagyana, and the guru says, take these cows and come back. So the one who has the aspiration in the heart will arrive. Aspiration is a sign that he will arrive. The mother goes on to say the aspiration is the sign. If there is a conscious aspiration, it's probably the last birth after which you are bound to realize what you are aspiring for. So the key of this yoga lies within us. Yet it is not easy to say that book is inside, it opens, as Sri Aurobindo says. It is also very difficult for the human mind limited in outer frames to say that he who has chosen the infinite has been chosen by the infinite. Now you see, Sri Aurobindo has revolutionized the whole yoga. Ordinarily, we go to a master and the master says, Aja Bacha. And then, he gives a mantra and you feel, master has called, I am initiated. I went to a master. That truth is the other way. That the master called. How did he call? How did he know? He knows. That's why he's the master. He's not living in a separative consciousness. We may be anywhere. I have seen story of this Equal One magazine, Nidananda. Somewhere far away in some island and suddenly, he gets, someone comes to visit and he leaves this book, The Mother, and he reads it and his life changes. He will find a way because he knows that the time has come. How does the master know that the time has come? Because we think master is sitting out there and I am here. This is our separative buddhi. But where is the master? The master of the yoga resides in the heart of every creature. Manavi tanu ashritam. It's the eternal truth. Sri Krishna speaks about it. The Upanishads speak about it. Again we forget. But because we are not able to contact him inside, he also comes outside. It's easier to recognize somebody in flesh and blood. But to make the mistake of believing that the master is limited by this body. Yesterday somebody asked a very interesting question. Yesterday was Champaklalji's birthday. Why do we celebrate, centenaries of great beings and observe birthdays of these people? They have already gone. People ask the same about Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So you have to explain that great masters, beings of the caliber of Champaklal, Nalnida, Pavitrada, And this is confirmed by the mother. They never go away. They act, they are conscious on the other planes. Because we are unconscious of everything except our material life, we believe that they are also unconscious. When they die the natural way. They come back and take a body the normal way. It doesn't operate. This is our law. Just like there are different laws in different domains. And even in the same domain, like now you have a helmet compulsory. But imagine if the big man is going without a helmet, who is going to stop him? Because different laws start operating at different levels. If the prime minister comes, it's a very different set of laws. The roads will be blocked, you have to go because that's how it operates. So there is an ascending hierarchy of laws. So masters don't operate the way we operate. They don't die and are reborn ignorantly the way we do. They are always conscious. Because they are conscious where we are not, therefore they are masters. Therefore they can lead us through realms of which we are unconscious, awaken us and show us that, look, here also I am here. So many examples of Mother and Sri Aurobindo who used to come in people's dreams. Still they do. And sometimes people don't know, I saw Mother in my dream. It means she has initiated us. It means she is intervening in our life. It means she is guiding us. Well, why did she come one particular day? Because we are unconscious. So one odd day she manifests so concretely. Masters are not limited because they are one with the divine. Divine, is he limited? We have created a divine. So again, Sri Aurobindo speaks of the conception of the divine. We have created a divine who is far, far, far away in some plane beyond. Oh, he is supramental and beyond. But we forget that he is also within everyone. The same who is up there. Sri Aurobindo's beautiful poem, God. O thou who pervadest all the worlds below, yet sittest above, master of all who work and rule, and no servant of love. So we have to understand this fundamental truth that the yoga is an inner journey primarily, and this journey is 24/7. Once it starts, it's a constant process. Just like when a person is in train, then he may sleep, but does the train stop? It carries on. It is a constant journey. Once the fire starts, and that fire is the fire of aspiration. Yet, just as it's difficult inside and not all are ready, so there is something outside, and outside we have a book. We have one book, two books, different books. So people often ask, which book? Pick up the book to which you are drawn. What may apply to me may not apply to somebody. At the same time, we must know that there are two kinds of books. Now Sri Aurobindo has added a third kind of book. Two kinds of books in yoga are, one, those which explain to us the philosophy or the metaphysics of a yoga. For instance, in Sri Aurobindo, it is the life divine. If one wants to understand the metaphysics, somebody who has read all kinds of Vedanta darshan and Tantra darshan and everything, Buddhism and everything, and he wants to understand the metaphysics, then life divine. Another kind of books gives us the principles of the practice. And that is the synthesis of yoga. Another kind of book is which gives us actually the practice. So we have Sri Aurobindo's letters on yoga. Another kind of book which just reading it is a practice. That is Savitri, because it's mantra-bit. Of course, all works of Sri Aurobindo are mantra-bit. So it's a mantric vani. Every time we read. So what happens when we read a book? What is a book after all? Very often people don't understand that in this world, everything is nothing but instrument of consciousness. No action has its own meaning by itself. Action and event carry the meaning from the idea, force that impels it. The idea that is behind it and the force that impels it. That's all. Any action in the world, from the great Mahabharata where there is a gory war to everyday life, it is the idea that impels us to act and the force that uses to express itself. So what is a book? Book is a vehicle of consciousness. So if it is conscious, vehicle of consciousness, why do I want to receive it only through the mind? Why not through the heart? So how do we receive a book and the consciousness within it through the heart? When I open synthesis, it's not, oh, it's a book of yoga, and suddenly, I become serious with my mind, all the bulbs, and with the mind comes all the Vedanta darshan and this Patanjali Yoga Sutras and Raj Yoga. No, that's not the way. This is also Sri Aurobindo's love for me, for us. Why would he write? For Sri Aurobindo said, I had no reason to write anything. There is a very beautiful expression, Swanta Sukhaya, for the joy of creation. Sitting in, I often wonder, people don't even read. Such a treasure. People have it in their houses, yes, nicely packed. Don't even take the care to read Sri Aurobindo's books. Imagine Sri Aurobindo writing from night 10 o'clock till morning 6 under a kerosene lamp. Can we imagine those days? Or sometimes a small bulb which came later on. And why was he writing all this? It is not just to be kept in a cupboard. So, when we read, when we read a letter, it's a very simple example. When letters used to come, old time, now email has finished that charm. So, the moment the postman came with a letter, what was the response? Arey, kiski chitti hai? So, if the letter was from somebody loved, you are in a hurry to open it. What do you receive in the letter? It's not about what is written in the letter. It's about the person who has written, and you come in contact and you feel happy. I have used this technique when I was away in Pune and parents wanted a letter every week. So how do I manage every week? So I would write for the whole month. Few lines. And then, every week I'll post it. So it helped me when I went to Pondicherry. I gave it to a friend with pencil. Every week you post it. Because otherwise they will feel bad, that I am going to Pondicherry, not coming to their place. So what happened? They were very happy that, the letter has come. It's not about what is written in the letter. That's really not so relevant. So similarly, like a book like The Synthesis, The Life Divine, it's a letter of Sri Aurobindo written to us. And he will explain it's his consciousness. So a book can be a tremendous power to unlock a door within if we use it as a means to come in contact with the consciousness. It is the consciousness within the book and the consciousness within me which comes together. The instrument is a book outside and the reading mind, the eyes and the brain, and the heart in the human instrument. But all is a contact of consciousness with consciousness. So this is the fundamental truth. So a book is like that. Now Sri Aurobindo, of course, takes it to a wide scale. We need not enter into that it could be this book, it could be any book, but to put it very in a nutshell, which are the books from the past which are very helpful to make an entry into Sri Aurobindo's yoga? He speaks of two things, not in the Synthesis but elsewhere. He says, those who have practiced the Vedantic yoga, it can really make an entry into Sri Aurobindo's yoga, like the Upanishads. Isha Upanishad is the basis of the life divine. And second, he says, those who have read and practiced the yoga of the Gita, they can really make a wide entry into Sri Aurobindo's yoga. So when we enter into yoga, we are not asked, what is your qualification? Sir, I am a Harvard University postgraduate. I've got this medal, that medal. Okay, stay outside. And you say that, sir, I am an ordinary illiterate peasant, but I have read the Gita, I try to practice, come in. So it is that. The mother herself, look at how her yoga can be done from a book. We know about Teo and all this. Mother's yoga is literally a yoga without a master, incidentally. She read the Gita, very poor translation as she says, but all that she was told was, Krishna is within you. And she says that she went like a storm and she realized the immanent divine. Then she became an adept in Buddhist yoga. Again, not initiated by any Buddhist, but adept in the Buddhist yoga. And how she would practice the yoga? She describes one experience of her own life, and this is something very amazing. But she doesn't say her own life, she says, that lady. So she describes the experience of that lady who goes to a theatre for a performance, musical or probably some play. And she says she's sitting, and behind her there is a man who is sitting. It's a wonderful performance, she's watching. And this man also wants to watch, but he is not able to watch so freely because he's sitting in front. She notices. She doesn't say anything to the man, but just slips a little, sinks a little in the chair. And then she couldn't watch quite naturally, but the man watched. She said, I got the happiness, the joy of living. This is yoga. She gives number of examples of her life. One example this time I'm saying. And therefore, when she comes to ashram, what does Sri Aurobindo write about her? He says she was already an adept in the Buddhist yoga and had mastered the yoga of the Gita. And of course the Isha Upanishad. So yoga is like that. Every little thing. And as we lead life like that, the inner Veda begins to open. Because no book can ever contain every small thing. People want to open a book and want to know. Now, how can a book say that if you have to choose for a career, which career you should choose? Probably if you ask the divine, he'll say, doesn't matter, go with the right attitude. Or, as Sri Aurobindo puts in one of the aphorisms, better to be a good shoemaker than to be an incompetent king. Will we follow it? So that's why everything is not written in a book. So it is a journey, a beautiful journey, very engaging journey, all the time which goes on. And the book is within. Every time we read, a door opens inside. When does it open? If we just carry this as an idea in the head, oh, this quote, that quote, then we will reduce it to a very narrow dogmatic formula. But if we use the book as a means to open the inner door, then we'll see so many layers and levels of truths are hidden inside. And as we read every time, we'll see a new meaning, a new sense appear. It's been the experience of people who have read. I know people, somebody who had read The Mother 40 times, that small book. And he said, now I began to understand a little. I know someone who has read Savitri 500 times. And he said, little now I am enjoying it. This is the effort that is required. It's not about reading Savitri or something 500. It's not like a medal is going to be given. But the fact that one is willing, it doesn't matter any effort. So Sri Aurobindo again makes effort very, very vast. He has liberated yoga from all the fixed codification and highly specialized techniques in which yoga tended to lose itself. Then everybody comes with his own brand of yoga. Little bit of tweaking of the breathing and it becomes this brand of yoga. Even people may have, registered the yoga, integral yoga and divine life terms. And I was very surprised because in Cape Town I was invited to give a talk on, the Divine Life by the Divine Life Society. And I was very surprised this Divine Life Society came from a very different master who ultimately spoke about the otherworldliness. So I didn't know what am I going supposed to speak because it'll upset everybody's whole ideas about divine life. Anyways, I spoke. So this is how, it's not about patenting a word or this or that. It has its place, but it is a vast movement towards the divine where every small thing becomes a means to progress or a means to stagnate or a means to fall. These are the only three possibilities. And it has nothing to do with outward events as it is to do with inwardly. So as we start proceeding in this way, the book begins to reveal itself within. This book is outside. There is the inner book, like that story of the bulletproof monk, where at the end, when the mantra is gone, and the fellow says, oh, I've lost the mantra. He says, don't worry, the real mantra is in my heart. Nobody can snatch it away. So this book, nobody can take it away. Then, same way he reveals that the master is within us. And by our love with the master, see, how is the master within us? Often people, how do I discover the divine within? Very simple. I often ask them, have you fallen in love? So people very hesitantly ultimately say yes, because people keep denying this, which is the most common experience everybody goes through. So what happens when you are in love? You're all the time thinking of the person. That person is occupying a space within your being which is there all the time. So outer contact becomes a means of enriching an inner reality. It is not indispensable to the inner truth. If this can happen with human love, which is so fragile, so much tainted with the ego, desire, brief-lived, what can happen when one loves the divine? By the power of love, we identify with the object of love. And after some time, we begin to know wherever we may go, she is with us. This happens. There is no process to it. It is like falling in love. How do I fall in love with the divine? Well, anybody in whose company we are all the time, we will fall in love. That is the story of Kuts and Indra. The two are in company. So after the Devasur Sangram, they are going up to their place. And Kuts is asking some questions and Indra is replying. When they reach the gate, Kuts has become like Indra. And even the people at the door are not sure. Who is this? Double Indra, duplicate Indra. Then Sachi comes. Sachi is truth consciousness. She comes and says, yes, I know he is the original Indra. Because otherwise there will be confusion. This is the transformed Indra. So what we have to do? We have to find ways and means to connect with her all the time. It may be through a book when we have some time. It may be through work. We are doing mother's work with this idea, not like, my work, my ego, my ambition. Obviously, it's understood. It could be through simply smaran, her name. It could be through visit to the ashram. It could be meeting like sadhaks and Sri Aurobindo, Name Anando, Jogi Rajo, Namo Namo. Anything. It doesn't matter. There is no fixed process. It could be through meditation. It could be just inwardly imagining that the mother is there and her light is entering. Important thing is when we try to spend our time and try to come in contact with the mother who is behind everything in every appearance. Initially the appearance will strike us, but if we go deep, we want to go deep, then she will reveal herself. Then after some time, because we are in love, this is what is called being in love. So then after some time, she takes up, or rather she reveals herself. She was always there. And then she does something else also. She puts a little emanation of herself, which wants us, her. Before we know, she knows. So she says, okay, you want to go through this? Okay, fine. That's how destiny is operating. She will take you. You won't even know how things came and just wished past and went away. Because this is the way the master works. The master does not work through any of the fixed processes. We often think, oh, master is there, so now I am sick. I will pray to the master and he will cure me. What if he wants us to develop endurance? What he wants us to develop faith? What if he wants us to develop courage? What if that door is the door through which we must pass so that in future big things appear to us small? Sometimes small difficulties, people who have not passed through difficulties in life and challenges. I had a very beautiful question from a little child today, and it's an opportunity to answer. That why is it that I read Savitri, I pray to mother, still my pain doesn't go? Well, small pain, go through it. Big pains will appear nothing. Don't go through the small pains of life, then later on, small little pain comes and we say, oh my God. So sometimes the divine mitigates big suffering by giving us something small. I remember when I had fallen on the beach. This is a real-time yoga. It's not about book. Don't read a book like that. Real-time yoga, when I had fallen on the beach, earlier there were rocks and suddenly it's a long experience, divine romance or romance with the divine. But let's forget that. But as I was climbing on the rock, what happens when you are in that romantic state? I fell on the rocks. But I felt that somebody has broken my whole fall in a nice way, holding in hand like a flower and kept me on the rocks. And I was experiencing delight. But somebody was sitting on top, suddenly got alarmed and called and I went. But anyways, to cut this part is the leaving this aside. Just then Chandradeep, she was walking on the seashore with two persons. And this sadhak who had seen me said, why don't you tell him your experience? I had some experience there. I said, okay, I didn't know him. The only first and last contact with him. So I met him and then I told him, he said he had something and I shared with him something. He said, sometimes big problems are sorted out in small ways by the divine. Disclosure. We say, oh, this problem, who knows what was going to come my way? I fell on the rocks, better than falling from mountains like Bhakta Prahlad. So, divine also had to labor less. He just held me and kept on the rocks. If I fell from the mountains, poor divine also will have to come like flying angel and do all this. So, the ways of the divine are not the way that the human mind and the ego prefers. The ego always wants to see things which are comfortable to itself. There was very nice, other day somebody was, some great poet's poem, was it Oscar Browning or somebody, he said that everybody is critical of me so much from everywhere, I hear my criticism, that it seems that this world is full of pious men. Everybody is criticizing me as if everybody is the most pious person. Now, this is what his ways are, that sometimes he will make you feel that everybody is cut off from your life. And you wonder, what kind of divine are you? Then he'll say, wait a second, don't be impatient. All around is night. And you say, oh my God, I can't see anything. He'll say, look deeper. I can't see. Arey, try to strain your eyes. Something is there. By then, you had 3 strings attached to you. They are also cut. Oh my God, now it's a free fall and darkness. Look and see. Look and see. Look and see. And then you see, in the night, he has chosen to meet us. Because in the daytime, I'm distracted with everything else. He has chosen to cut the strings so that he can show me what it means to be in his embrace. Because I was too busy enjoying the puppet play of the strings of the forces. So this is how the divine operates. He doesn't operate according to the fixed method and technique. If we are looking for fixed methods, fixed techniques, fixed ways of divine based on our mental ideas, then we can forget about yoga. In fact, Sri Aurobindo says it can be very dangerous if in search of miracle, every time, the divine who is always giving you whatever you ask for all purposes, we are still roaming in the vital world. But sometimes when the divine loves, ask us of his chosen ones, what did he do to Draupadi and the 5 Pandavas? He didn't do this to the 100 Kauravas or their wives, Dushala, their sister. He didn't do all this to them. But the disclosure of the divine was to Draupadi and not to Dushala. This is the difference. He was a friend to Arjuna and not to Karna. Deep inside, he is the universal lover and friend. But consciously, outwardly. So Arjuna, the mighty warrior, had to go through this humiliation, defeat. Draupadi, born of fire. See what happened when they were disrobing Draupadi? She became fire. The fire that was covered under the cloak of humanity was suddenly unveiled, and that fire destroyed the entire Kuru clan and many other Kshatriyas, because she was born for that mission. So actually he was reminding Draupadi of her mission, that don't be very happy with the 5 husbands and this Indraprastha, I'm going to snatch away everything so that you fulfill the work for which you are here. So what Sri Aurobindo reveals is that the master does not work according to our ideas. If he were to do that, he would not be master, but another me. So many times we think of the mother and master and we try to project our own ego image onto them. Oh, mother will do always good. And then next is as an underline, like in small lines. Means he will always satisfy whatever my ego demands. We don't say this so blatantly, but we say, mother will always do good. अच्छा करेंगी. उसके नीचे होता है, जो मैं चाहूँगा वैसा करेंगी. So sometimes he reminds us, look, you didn't read carefully the script below when you signed the paper. Oh, I sorry ma. Then now what? अच्छा ही करूँगी, but my way, not your way. Why? Because my way will put you on the highway and your way will take you far, far away. That's what we are always doing, no? Run by the ego for lives. Where has it landed us? Look at civilization, into the morass where we don't know where to go next. So when we turn to yoga, what is needed from us is complete faith and surrender. Complete faith. Sri Aurobindo uses a word called Kalyana Shraddha. Even if the world is crashing, to have the faith that all will be good. Why? What is the basis of this faith? That she is there. The whole world may abandon us, she will not. The whole world may judge us, she will not. The whole world may condemn you, she will not. Because she only knows one thing, and that is love. Even her rejections, even her punishments are not punishments. Even her rejections are not rejections, but postponements. Even her punishments are not punishments, but a grace. So constantly the sadhaka's effort has to be 3 phases, Sri Aurobindo says. Effort has to be first to come in contact with the divine. We spoke about that. Every time we read, every time we think of the divine, every time we take her name, we are trying to come in contact. Manana. Then darshana, nididhyasana. Then through all these means, slowly, the divine begins to touch us. This part, that part. Doesn't matter which part. Duryodhana knew this secret. That's why he said, I will not give you a jameen, land worth even a needle point. Why? Because he knew you give needle point to Krishna, he'll end up taking everything. He knew this. The Asura knew this. Give her a needle point. Ma. That's it. and she will flood the whole consciousness in time, and then after some time you'll say, I don't know, where am I? It's only her, her, her. To say I will appear so absurd. To use the word me and mine the way it is used, generally. Of course, you have to use a word for communication. You can't say that Atman. That is another kind of ego. Use the word I, but the meaning is completely changed. It's no more that I of that old consciousness. So, faith, surrender is important. Courage is important. Through these, because why courage? Because she'll take us through all the scenes of life. Yoga is not an easy journey. Who said it's an easy journey? Sri Aurobindo reminds us throughout. No yoga is easy, like French made easy or French without tears. And the integral yoga, the yoga of transformation, is even more difficult because it's a change of nature. But once the process starts, go through it till the end. So the first step is to come in contact. The second is the divine begins to enter us. And now the transformation begins. So what is transformation? Very nice. We look golden. Golden light is coming down. Suddenly my mind will become all intuitive. My heart will be full of love, universal love. Yes, the heart will be full of universal love. Suddenly you will be in contact with somebody whom you most despise. Practice universal love with this person and you will have universal love. Suddenly we all have a good image. See how transformation works. The second step where the force begins to work. She will raise parts which we didn't know. We all have an image. I am a very good person. All others are bad guys, from the next door neighbor to the prime minister and everybody. But I am a good guy. She'll see, wait a moment. Like gopis, she will snatch the robe of virtue. Then we'll hide under the water. Okay, still water is what? World force. This is how the world is. I have to be like this. No. Step out. Then we'll step out in utter nudity. And then she'll say, now I'll give you a new set of clothes. So the second stage is when the divine force begins to work. And the third is where there is no effort struggle, because one has surrendered and she will work out for everything. One is the complete faith and the abandon. That whatever happens, she will take us through. That is when we enter this Sangit path. So 3 stages. Again, Sri Aurobindo reminds, how does the divine act in this yoga, the master work? He says, one is the word, the instructions. I think I did mention that the word is always limited. We should read, draw inspiration, but we are not bound to a book. It's not a book knowledge. We are sadhakas of the infinite, not of this book or that book. There are so many things in life which can't be written in a book or even in all the letters, because each life is unique. So there is a unique path of everyone. So to an extent, one has to develop this plasticity, and this Veda should open from inside, and the guidance must come from inside. Guidance is not like do this, do that. That's another mistake. Divine will be you press a button on automaton and there will be a robo's voice coming inside. You have taken a wrong turn. Please swerve to the right. It doesn't work like that. That's how the human mind works and machines work. He will say, I know. He'll smile probably. And in that smile, the guidance is there. He'll probably gently nudge you and you'll find, you have entered again back into that. It is not the way human mind expects him to, act. So the inner master, the divine within, the divine mother within rather, when the synthesis was written, the mother had not yet come and taken charge. She had come, but she was on the way to Japan. So Sri Aurobindo used the word master. But later on it's all about mother within, and the Shastra within. She will start opening to the infinite. And the disciples. But how does the divine work? One is through the book, the instruction. But people often say what books to read. There is one kind of book which is missed out. It is authentic, good life, inspiring life of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. And therefore the next is example. See, how is it that people who read Ramayana and the Bhagavatam, they also arrive at realizations of yoga? The Ramayana doesn't say as much as, Rama meets so many human beings. Even Rama is known to be a Brahmagyani. But how did he realize Brahman? Nobody says that. How was he what he was? So it just, when we read the life of Rama, it inspires us. When we read the life of Krishna, it inspires us. When we read the life of the mother and Sri Aurobindo, it inspires us. And we automatically begin to walk the path because you fall in love with them. When you read small details of mother's life, time is short, so I'm not entering into it, and they are all mentioned. Read the life of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Read about their relation with the sadhaks. It's a Bhagavad in its own right, and it's a wonderful opening into direct example. And finally, by the influence. How does the divine influence? Influence is not limited to the body. In fact, when Mother was asked in 1972, tell us how is Sri Aurobindo's action now, he says he has himself acquired a much more powerful influence over human beings. How? Because he is not in the physical body and its limitations. This is to answer those who say, they are not, precisely because they are not in the body. This is earlier you would write a letter because he had to limit himself to the body, then he has to reply. Many times people got the answer even without the letter. But that apart, most people waiting for the letter. If the letter didn't come after 2 days, again. So at one place, Mother says, but I already replied to you inwardly, didn't you receive it? And now, she says, now that is gone, you just go to the Samadhi and tell Sri Aurobindo and he listens and he will reply to you simultaneously to many people. See, the physical body is limited, no? Because physical body always, you have 2 hands, one will write. But inner response will come to everybody. So influence. And this influence is something very powerful. When Mother spoke about the Samadhi, she said it's surcharged with the supramental vibration. It's the, Sri Aurobindo used the word central influence for the ashram. It is the place of central influence. So what we receive here, you'll see, enter the ashram. Oh, where is the meditation course going on? Hare Baba, there is not even a recognized meditation hall. Sit anywhere you feel like. Some course, something, I am ready to give money. No, money doesn't work here. You can put it in the hundi. So something we want to know, Are, just go, be near the Samadhi. What do I do now? Nothing, just be there. What will happen? Influence will happen. I know of a person who would come near the Samadhi. There's so much she has written about the Samadhi. But one person I know, Samadhi, why should I? I'm standing like this. Suddenly this person felt like touching the Samadhi. Maybe because others were doing or some. And this lady, she's now in the ashram. She said, I can't lift my head out. For half an hour, she just couldn't dissociate with the Samadhi, what had started happening. So it's a field of tremendous vibrations. The divine doesn't act according to physical body and its limitations. It's our buddhi. But the divine buddhi is vriddhi. Silent influence. You see in the Upanishad it is written, I saw a wonderful scene today. I saw a young guru and an old disciple. And the guru spoke nothing and the disciple understood everything. Silent influence. And Sri Aurobindo always said that's much more powerful than the instruction. Yet because we cannot be so receptive, therefore he wrote all the books also. So this is where we have to understand the ways of working of the Master. And then have that utsaha. We should want, it's a wonderful journey. Why people enter into complaining, grudging, Arey, what is happening in my life? Arey, you are on a ship which is carrying you to a new world. We should be excited about it. Not excited in the vital way, but it's such a wonderful journey. Look at the goal towards which we are going. It's so beautiful. When one comes to, for instance, Pondicherry, old time, I often used to give this example. We don't know where it is. Garmi hoga, sardi hoga. Then you land up in Madras. You don't know the language. The coolie will fleece you. You don't know which bus. You get into the wrong bus. Everything possible. But at the end, what happens? Guest house. You're all setting in all this. At the end of the day, when you reach the Samadhi, you say, arrived. That's the end of the story. Look at the goal. This is called Utsaha. That's where I have to go. Not the events and of the way. This should not tie us for long. Events are events, circumstances, situations. But the goal towards which we have to go. That is the disciples' Utsaha. Finally, most important, however much the Utsaha may be, and the grace is of course constantly there, you must allow time. So people often wonder what is time about. Time is like put a seed into a soil and you say, what seed is it? So the farmer says it's a big banyan tree. Okay, you'll come next day and say, where is the banyan tree? He'll say, wait, it'll take some time. Okay, after 1 week, where is the banyan tree? Hurry, it'll take some time, I told you. After 1 month, where is the banyan tree? Sorry, banyan tree is probably not put like a seed, it's put like a sapling. Course correct. But many things like that, no? Every day we want to monitor. It's like saying when a baby is conceived in the womb, you say, I want to see the baby, I want to see the baby. And when the baby is born, when Buddha was born, he will become either a Chakravarti Samrat or a great yogin. Did the next day Buddha became either? Buddha had to go through his own challenge. It's a real time journey. Why? Because why are they necessary? Time is necessary to prepare us for that. It's a field of play of forces, circumstances through which we move. What is the path? Path is at once within and without. Every circumstance, situation, event of life, every person we meet and do not meet, open a door, help us in the journey depending on how we look at it. If we are egoistic, if we resist, time will, still it is decided that you will arrive. So what happens if we resist? We'll keep complaining, Are kya ho raha hai zindagi mein? I turn to God and look, calamities have fallen upon my life. Ask God's viewpoint. He says, yeah, that's how I treat, you are dear to me. So, we must allow time. So, how to use time best? Sri Aurobindo puts it very beautifully. Patience. To learn to wait is to put time on your side. This waiting is not inertia. When we do an effort and then wait for its time, then the disclosure comes faster. But when we are overeager is ego. I am doing meditation, what is going to happen to me? 2 days, 2 months, 2 years. People give lifetimes. The story of that man, Sri Aurobindo recounts, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa's story also, that there are 2 yogis, one is the Jnana yogi and the Bhakti. And Narada is going, he says, please, I'm modifying the story to make it short. Not he has to go to Kshirsagar. You have a hotline connection, please ask God when will I have the realization, both of them ask. And Narada picks up, dials number 111 only, Kshirsagar. And then Kshirsagar response comes, this fellow, okay, this tapasvi, no, after 3 lives he will get it. For you 3 lives. 3 lives of tapasya? Let me go and enjoy this life. Other 2 lives. Anyways, I'll get after 3 lives. No. So he goes away. The bhakta, tell him as many leaves on the tree, that many lives he will take. As many leaves on the tree, that many lives. Is it my Lord has said that he will meet me after so many lives? Oh, Hari will meet me. He is so ecstatic and dances in joy that the divine comes then and there. He said, but you said so many lives. He says, yes, I make rules, I break rules. I am the eternal creator of rules and I break my own rules. He enjoys it. That's his freedom. We have to grant him that, no? Why should he be bound? He chooses to be bound, but he is always free and infinite. So when we learn to trust the divine and surrender, we put time on our side, which means patience, perseverance, dhira, as the word puts it in. Apramatta, that's how yoga has to be practiced. Without getting into all kinds of, false ideas. Oh, I'll get it. Let it take time. But it doesn't mean that the aspiration should not become intense. It should be intense, but without impatience. In fact, the more time it takes, the aspiration becomes more and more intense. Till a time comes when suddenly every veil is torn. So these are the 4 8s. As I said, I'll just read 2 sentences because some way to come in touch. Okay, this we can read. We had read about the teacher of the integral yoga, instruction, example and influence. At the end he says something very beautiful. How does Sri Aurobindo deal with us? It's very interesting. We want to. Mother people would put on the pedestals. Sri Aurobindo has changed everything. He said, oh, I see, you want to put me on a pedestal like a guru. But I am much more comfortable to be the universal mother of all. What he has changed, what he changed. What is the difference? Guru, there is a distance. Guru is on a pedestal, I am down below. I can't tell the Guru that, Guru, I did this horrible thing. Guru will say, I have given you a technique, go and meditate. Rest is your karma. But to a mother, you can say, Ma, I fell in the mud. Come. She will take out the super divine rin soap and undress us. Give us a nice scrub in the bath. She used to say, bath of the Lord. Clean us dry, not dry cleaners. She can do that also. By dry cleaning, she irons out all the knots. And then she will give us a new clothes. Okay, go. Again you come back, Ma, again mud. Okay, come. 1,000 times she says you fall in the mud and she will clean you. If you have that, because she is the mother. Sometimes she may be a little bit, see, I told you this, but again. So, and it shall also be a sign of the teacher of the integral yoga that he does not arrogate to himself guruhood in a humanly vain and self-exalting spirit. Please be very, very careful of all gurus who are abrogating guruhood. I am the guru of the integral yoga. Okay, this is not my statement. I am saying that, you hear it. Please stay away. Caution from my side. Too dangerous to go near such gurus. Guru never says, I am a guru. Sun does not declare, I am sun. I can burn you, I can scorch you, I can give. Sun is happily smiling, rising on the horizon. You receive or you don't receive. It's okay. So, does not abrogate. He doesn't come with advertisement. So and so. You realize so many things. He teaches a method where you will realize. No. His work, if he has one, is a trust from above. He himself a channel, a vessel or a representative. He is a man helping his brothers. Even the divine, he becomes a human being so that he can give his perfect example. A child leading children. He can be like a child. Mother would play with us like a child. Child leading children. A light kindling other lights, an awakened soul awakening souls. At highest, a power of presence of the divine, calling to him other powers of the divine. This is Sohamasmi in the true sense. When we go to divine and say, I am so and so, no, you are a portion of me. But I don't know it. Yes, that's what I am here for. And as we move, trusting him, surrendering to him, he makes us realize that who we truly are, the goal, the purpose, the way, and the change takes place rapidly. That is the last stage of the yoga. When everything that has been prepared and ready, suddenly there is a assembling of all the different parts, and the transformed being is ready to act in the world on a new basis and in a new way. Namaste. We have 5-10 minutes, so please feel free to ask questions. Yes, and some of the processes we'll discuss tomorrow, day after tomorrow, because that's when we'll discuss the processes. Today I focused on the 4 8s because that's an important chapter in the synthesis, and I have approached from that angle. But some of the processes that we use in the yoga, when we work, when we meditate, when we love the divine, leading us towards perfection, what this perfection is, that we'll speak of day after tomorrow. Okay? Yes, please. Yes, so that's what in the end I was mentioning. Aspire intensely but without impatience. So impatience brings ego into the effort. Impatience implies a lack of trust in the grace. Impatience implies that the surrender is not complete. So we must understand there is something we have to do and something the divine has to do. To put in very simple terms, what is in our hands? To put in our effort, and it should be done with as much sincerity as we can command at a given point of time, knowing that this is nothing compared to the way it is going to grow. So this sincerity itself will grow over a period of time. So ever ready, ever vigilant to take help from whatever we can, constantly grow. But about the results of the yoga, about what we will realize is entirely the divine's problem. It's not our problem. As this, we used to counsel children that, they say, what will be the result? So Yoga of the Gita primes us regarding it so beautifully. Do your bit. Don't worry about the result, because anyways, it's not in our hands. The result is, because even in ordinary result in an exam, is not in our hand. I may have done all the best preparation and yet there may be a mental block or so many things. Or maybe in spite of that, the examiner may suddenly feel, I think the fellow knows, but he has mixed a few steps. So many variables are there. Now, this is a small thing, like, Sachin Tendulkar plays and he may be out for a duck. So result is something which is determined by a whole complex play of forces, which is what time is. Many times, and it is noticed by many people, we aspire. I mean, it's like a cycle. You are aspiring, and nothing really is happening. Suddenly, after some time, unexpectedly things begin to happen. That's because this aspiration was like a little drop of water, till one day, suddenly the tank is full. So this is how we have to understand the process, that it's not a mathematical process where we have put in something and it comes out immediately. It may happen like that. If the tank is already full, then a drop is enough to spill it over. But more, or there is a major event, like a stone falls, then again it will spill. So sometimes we are aspiring, and most unexpectedly, when we think we are least really practicing the yoga, suddenly results will come. This also happens. So we have to understand that the way the results are determined in this yoga is not the way the human mind or our human calculation. Sometimes we meet an insurmountable difficulty, seemingly, and we think we have lost everything. And it is the last step, as he says so beautifully, a step and all is sky and God. Cross it over and you discover that one has really progressed with a big leap. So that's why one has to just steadily keep applying the effort. If small difficulty, big difficulty, small challenge, big challenge, whatever it is, apply the effort steadily, and eventually there will be a time when this effort will become ripe and the fruit will come. Now, depending on what is the fruit which is being prepared. And the mother says that premature asking for a fruit, it's like, people want to feel good. Now, what is the problem with that? That no, I want a 10-day course which will make me feel good. So, when you put a mango tree seed and the mango tree comes, so when the mango is kacha and you want to pluck it, then what happens? You can make only achar out of it or enjoy the khatta keri. But if you wait, then the real ripe mango will come. So this quick feel-good factor doesn't operate. We should learn to wait and not pluck the kacha keris. What is plucking the kacha keri? Suddenly you have some experience and you feel, I have got something. Many of these feel-good movements, why I'm so much against it, and people often ask me, what is wrong, 10-day course? They kill the aspiration. Precisely because in 10 days you feel very good, then you come back and it is very nice. Then again you go back after 1 year, waiting for that, and you are doing this practice. So actually it stifles the aspiration and puts into a straitjacket. Whereas when we know that there is a season for everything, and that season we have to wait. So in life there is a season, and we learn everything. As I said, the Vedas is there in creation. So we must wait for the right season for the results to come forth. And the longer it takes, that means a better mango, langda, is being prepared rather than just some artificially ripened mangoes. If mangoes are coming in the market too soon, before the season, know that they are artificial. Isn't it? I'm not a housemaker, but I understand this much logic. But when they come in season, then you say, now it is a good mango. Isn't it? Am I wrong? That's right. No. So, we don't want artificially prepared mangoes. We want the real one, the natural ones. So, the season is to be respected. And the season will change for everybody. Somebody in a young life, young age, have many experiences because they are prepared in the past life. This journey is not of one life. So, we must understand. Sometimes we may be preparing for another movement in another life. That's the beauty of rebirth. So it's not like one life is only given to us. One life may be only for the thirst. And the second life we are born with water pouring from everywhere. And we may wonder why is so much Amrit pouring. Well, you died thirsty, You died with thirst on your lips. I don't know, but I remember. I wanted you to taste thirst. And now I will make you taste Amrit. So that's how it is. When we go through thirst, then we value Amrit. Even ordinary water is Amrit. When we don't have thirst and Amrit is given, we say, is it dirty? That's how we are. So this is a preparation. Time is needed to prepare us. This is in brief about. Also because the divine has to take into account everything, every human being in contact with us. If one person shifts, everything and everybody connected with the person shifts. So he is not like an arbitrary monarch. Oh, you want yoga? Okay, fine, done. Everybody connected with me now has to be taken into considerations. That's why there was an old saying, I've seen it with mother, and it's so true. One person sincerely taking the path, many others connected with the person start getting affected and influenced. The pressure starts. There are sometimes families and generations. The story of Bhagirath is that tapasya starts with Sagar and fructifies with Bhagirath. So we must put in the efforts and leave the rest to the divine, his job, very difficult job by the way. And best is to leave it to the wise one who is there. Let us play on the way with the divine. He is playing as a child. At the end, the child will grow into the wise one and show us. And by then, or probably make us into a child, and we discover the joy was in the journey, the delight, and not so much in getting. And he makes us grow. Playing tennis, people have grown with the mother. So we'll play, we won't even know that the change has happened, and people will notice around us. Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Good evening. Yes. Exactly what we were discussing now. The smile of love that sanctions the long game. It is the love which knows that the longer the journey, through pain, struggle, but eventually what is going to come out will be a most beautiful things. Look at creation. Now we appreciate, oh, wonderful sky studded with stars and all these billions of years. And then, of course, the supramental creation. But in the beginning, it was decided. But if human beings have to create something, they want, project, hasten it. What they will create? Something very transient, temporary, which will perish with time. Look at the Pandavas, going through all the difficulties. But Pandavas are immortalized in the history of, at least, India and the history of the world. So that is the smile of love that sanctioned for them the long game. They were not made the prince immediately. Every time they were made the prince, the kingdom was snatched. But who was behind that snatching of the kingdom? The smile of Krishna. So it is the smile of love that sanctions the long game. So we have to learn to trust. When we trust, then eventually the disclosure will be grand. So that's what we were talking about. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.